you can work for somebody while you build something for yourself. Welcome back, lads. Main topic for today is working for someone else. I see a lot of entrepreneurship pages and theme pages on TikTok and Instagram, and they all say quit the 9 to 5. It's bad. It's the worst thing you can do on this planet. And I think I disagree with this because it has a purpose. But let me just ask you this: what do you think of working for someone else?
I think that working for someone else, yes, there's a lot of hatred towards it from people that, funnily enough, probably employ people themselves. And I think that really we have to look at it more on a person by person basis. Now, working for someone else is not bad. That's working for someone else. If you were to say it's bad and just put a blanket approach, I heavily disagree with that. It really depends on you as an individual. I have worked for someone else. I have also worked for myself. I could tell you which one I prefer, but then there's also positives and negatives to each, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree with you. It has always, I think working for someone else has always benefits as long as you do it on purpose. It sounds stupid, but I think if you try to discover a new skill, if you want to have some inspiration, if you want to master a skill, I think working for somebody is the best way to learn as you go and earn the money on, like, the money is the side effect, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it provides you with a means to essentially feed yourself.
Yeah,
Because not everyone has got so many thousands of pounds or dollars or tens of thousands, whatever, in savings, which allows them to go and take up ventures by themselves where there may not be any monetary input essentially for a considerable amount of time, even years
I
or
agree.
up to a decade potentially.
All
So
right.
working for someone else allows you to obviously have that salary that feeds you at the same time as dipping your toe into a potentially larger business which deals with many different people, including staff, suppliers, customers, and things like this. And also, you learn their mistakes. You learn how things work, how supplier relationships work, how supplier customer relationships work, what sorts of terms that you would have. Like, assuming that obviously you're working in a business that you perhaps had the idea at one point in time that you would want to start your own business in that industry. Now,
Yeah.
I say that because obviously, like, look, if I were to say to myself, oh, I want to start, I don't know, I want to start an estate agency, perhaps it would be a good idea, obviously, to work in an estate agency. And then from working in that estate agency, I would understand, is this something that I would actually want to do myself and build from the ground up?
Yeah, I agree. And I guess I just want to, okay, let's do this. I have a story here because I went from a mechanic to an agency owner, and this is a widespread of, okay, working on cars, and all of a sudden he's in marketing and doing like just computer work, right? So let's I want to dive into the story where I come from, and I give you for every section uh, of my life and the process to it, and I tell you what the benefits were from that story. So I started as a mechanic, as an apprenticeship for about 3 years, and I started doing the apprenticeship. I'm not kidding. I did not know what to do. I did not know what I'm interested in. I had no passion for anything. I had no real plans for the future. I did not know where to start in life. So my mom, thanks mom, for pushing me to get into this because it was a friend of my dad's side, and I just started working there. During this process, I had my first mentor, and he taught me one thing that he said, okay, never stop learning. I thought back in the days it was just related to this, to my apprenticeship, because I started the apprenticeship, I was new to this thing, and I just didn't know what to do. And he just said, never stop learning. And later in life, I discovered, okay, this is not even just related to the apprenticeship or to the business I worked at. It was in life, you always should be curious about certain things. So I learned basically all of the ins and outs from the dealership. I understood to manage people. And within 5 years, I became a shop manager. That's crazy because usually you're not becoming a shop manager with an age of 21. It's not a thing, at least not in Germany. And after I graduated from the Master Tech school that allows me to start my own shop, I did that because I discovered, okay, I know everything and let's just go for it. So I quit the job. I launched my detailing business because I thought that's the easiest thing to do. You just detail, make some money, and go from there. While the process and everything was fine because I knew to deliver quality service, I did not know anything about marketing and sales and brand positioning, pricing strategies, etc. So everything on the sales perspective, how to build something from scratch, I was a newbie. I did not know what to do. So fast forward 9 months, I had to close the business. It failed miserably. But I'm proud of it because it taught me a lot of things that I need to work on marketing and sales. And this is essential for any business to do marketing and sales. And if you don't know any of those things, you better get this game right. From that on, I started working at a development company. So this is funny because one of my friends, she worked at a BMW development company, and all they did was design and technology advanced products for BMW and the Volkswagen Group. No, they're not together as a company, but this was the clientele, what the business, the company I worked for was mainly focusing on. I worked there as a team lead for the website development, for the internal onboarding experience. So this is basically not even something that the consumer sees. It's just for the company itself. But I had the chance to see brand positioning, the marketing strategies, how they present different products in different markets. So not just Germany, so it's really on a global scale. And I was very impressed by it. And I learned everything, but I was not really, I didn't feel ready to start a new business just because I was so, I guess, afraid to fail again. So I moved to the US. I wanted to learn English. That was my deepest desire, to learn English. And I started working at Mercedes-Benz, where I had the opportunity to go to all the different departments. And I just discovered all the different and I discovered all the differences, what I learned from the development company, from the different markets, from brand positioning standpoint, and I saw everything made sense now. I could tie this all together. And so the only last piece I missed was sales. And one other mentor I met there, he was a multimillionaire, and he said sales is one of the most important skills you need to make anything work. Regardless if you start a business or not, if you're a salesperson and you understand sales, this is how you become successful in life. And obviously I tried to become successful at that point, and I started working at a sales organization for chemicals. And so I learned B2B sales, and from that on, I said, okay, now I think I'm ready to start something. And this is how I got into my agency. I learned marketing. I fell in love with marketing because it's very creative. It has a lot to do with understand the other party. You need to understand and present yourself as appealing as possible to the audience you try to reach. And I think this shows that working for somebody is just a journey to wherever you want to go in life. So
yeah, exactly. It can be used as a stepping stone, and it's exactly what you were saying at the beginning. Is working for somebody else, it can work very, very well if you have sort of a goal. So, i.e., I mean, I work for someone else, and I learned accountancy. So I spent some time of my life working for someone else and making someone else richer, and providing more value than I was paid for to do. But in exchange for that, yeah, you learn, and then you have a salary all the time. I want to quickly touch on sales and marketing because I think that perhaps we should do another episode on this, but it is very important. Sales and marketing is very important, and I've always heard the analogy, which has stuck with me, that marketing is sort of getting people through the door into your shop, and sales is sort of like actually selling. You could have the best product in the world if you can't sell, if no one's coming through that door and coming to your web page. The door is obviously an analogy for either a physical shop or a web page, or coming to you personally as a consultant, whatever it may be. If you don't have that streamline of people coming in, and then if you can't close the sale, i.e. affirm with them, they already want to buy something when they've come in most of the time, but if you can't affirm with them that you are the right person in whatever it is to be for people to partner with their money, then you could have the best thing in the world, but no one's gonna buy it. So sales and marketing is absolutely essential. It's one of the key things that anyone should learn, and even if you're working for someone else, to market yourself, to sell yourself.
Yeah.
In a job interview, when you're asking for a raise, when you've got 10 other colleagues next to you and you're telling your boss that you should be the manager. So it can be useful for anyone.
Yeah,
really,
I agree.
right?
And I think we can just piggyback on this and just list the pros. Do you have some specific pros you think it is better to be working for somebody else than
Yeah,
learning it on yourself?
100%. There definitely are some massive benefits for working for someone else. And the biggest one is obviously you have a guaranteed pay, almost. It's an almost guaranteed payout, right? Every single month.
Yeah.
So, the second pro is you clock in at 9, you leave at 5 or thereabouts. Maybe there's a bit of overtime here or there, but as soon as you leave, you don't have to worry about that business. As a business owner, you could be working stupid hours, right? Especially at the beginning. And if you don't get your ducks in a row, then you will be doing that forever. And you're essentially replacing a job for an even worse job. And that's before we get into working for yourself and the pros and cons of that. But essentially, yeah, you have an almost guaranteed pay slip every single month, which can help you keep your head above water, help you eat, and all these sorts of things.
I agree.
You also can have some certain benefits. You maybe even will get a work laptop, a work phone, travel allowance. You clock in at 9, you leave at 5, and then you don't have to worry about it.
I agree.
There's other also benefits, especially in the UK, is that you don't have to do a tax return. Everything's already sorted out for you. You receive your money. Yeah, you actually, so if you're working for someone else under what they call PAYE, pay as you earn, what happens, so maybe you didn't know this, so what happens is it's a little bit stupid in some ways, but so essentially what happens is that the employer will put on your payslip the gross amount, and then they will deduct the tax. So say you earn $2,000 a month, right? So your payslip will say $2,000, and then they will deduct the tax and keep the tax in an account and pay you the net of tax. So i.e. they have tax and national insurance. So we'll just call it all tax for now to make things easy. And then they calculate it at a different rate. So then after that you might have, I don't know, £1,700 left. So they'll pay you the £1,700. £300 will go directly to the tax people, HMRC, essentially, which means that people are getting paid net of tax, yes, and they don't have to necessarily, save that money. Whereas if you're working for yourself, you are collecting all that money, and then your year end, say your year end is March, right? Every single year, your financial year end is March. You then have to submit a tax return by January of the following year. So here we have March 22, all due by January 23, right? So you have 9 months, but then you have to pay tax based on that previous year. So that would be April 21 to March 22. You pay the tax for that year by January 23. You could do it before, but the deadline is January 23, right? End of January 23. Which I want to, actually take some time to go through all the pros and cons of working for yourself separately. But in this country, then you can be put in a bit of a sticky situation because that money's come and gone, right?
Yeah.
Which means that the tax associated with that could have come and gone as well.
Yeah.
So if you're actually on top of things and you manage your money correctly, you may as you're earning this money, create a separate tax account, create monthly management accounts. Now, if you're actually clever, what you'll do is you'll build up a tax shield. So essentially, in year 1 to 3 of building up your own business, you would create as many possible expenses, and you would create a loss in the first year of a significant amount. That loss is therefore then is carried forward indefinitely, and then you won't pay tax, and you continuously won't pay tax.
Okay.
So when you hear big businesses and things like that, oh, they don't pay tax. Yeah, it's probably because they spent a hell of a lot of their own money at the beginning. And it's like, you know, in some of my companies, I don't pay tax because I built up a tax shield.
Yeah.
And I rightfully shouldn't pay tax because I lost a lot of money at the beginning.
I think we all do.
So there's a little bit of a crash course on on tax, but yeah. Can you tell us some other pros of working for someone else?
Yes, I would go with you learn systems and you can A/B test systems. What I mean by that is, for example, there's a system place. I think this is also a con. I also have to jump around now, just a bit. If you start a business, you don't have any systems. So you need to create systems from scratch. And sometimes those systems are great when you create, and sometimes they absolutely suck. And I say it because I feel it every single time when I do run my agency. There are some systems I wish I could just copy and paste from somebody because I don't know certain things that I need. And then you go and modify your strategies or systems. Versus if you work for somebody, you learn a system. Yes, it's biased towards whoever built the system. However, if it works, then it just works, right? You just question why does it work and see how you can improve. So if you start your own thing, then you can just copy and paste the system you fully understood, why it worked and how well it worked. And then you can try your A/B testing strategies of maybe I tweak this a little bit, maybe I tweak this. But essentially you learn systems you can just understand and put some time into and some effort to make it work within the company. And then you have a blueprint essentially for yourself. I think this is one of the biggest things I learned for myself.
Exactly. I think that we need to separate this out a little bit though, because yes, this is a pro for working for someone else, but it's only a pro. So look, first of all, you got to look, what do I actually want? And this can change, and it's a very hard question to answer, and it can change throughout your life. And it certainly has for me many times. But if you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, I'm going to work for someone else to essentially build up a nest egg so then I have enough savings to then go and start my own business, then yes, you can look at their systems if you're going to go and work, and you can obviously, even if it's in a different industry, you still can learn things. You can learn of those systems, learn the mistakes of those systems, improve those systems make your own systems using those systems as a base and make certain improvements. But that's only a positive if you do have the end goal of then going on and doing your own thing, right? So for anyone that just wants to work in a 9 to 5 for the rest of their life, fair enough. Look, I'm not here to say that is a good thing or a bad thing, but the fact of the matter is that it is for some people and it isn't for some people. So for me, it's not really something for me. For a lot of people though, it's something that they want because they want that quote unquote job security. No, I do say quote unquote because, should we move on to the cons?
I think I want two more things because I think it has benefits to it. Next is actually, do you have one more pro just from your side?
Go on. I'll have a think. If something comes to mind, then I can say. Go on. What are the pros that you have?
The pro is that you can discover things that you just don't enjoy doing. So before you invest thousands of dollars or thousands of euros or thousands of pounds into, let's say, a detailing business or like a shop, and you discover, I don't like cars at all. Why am I even doing this? So if you invested all this money, it's hard to
Yeah.
just walk away. But if you just start working somewhere and you discover, okay, I
Yeah,
like
you can
this.
easily walk away. And it's a very good way, and I've done this personally, it's a very good way of dipping your toe in the water,
Yeah.
especially if you can do like volunteer work, even if you don't need the money, for example. So, like, one example of mine is that I worked for about 2 weeks in an optic, I don't know, was it 2 weeks or a month? For a small amount of time, I worked for a small amount of time in an optician's because I thought I wanted to be an optometrist.
Hmm.
And then I realized that is not for me at all. And then I've worked in other industries as well, which you know, you can potentially fall back on. You can potentially say, if I need a little bit of extra cash, I could do this. And you build up the experience, right? So if you look at yourself and you say, okay, look, firstly, we don't know all of the industries that are out there. So that's number one, is we don't know everything that's out there.
Yeah.
You may really, really enjoy doing, I don't know, creating medicine or something like that. But if you never knew that that existed, then how would you know to go and try that?
Yeah.
So you can sort of get a blank piece of paper and say, okay, perhaps I want to be an engineer in XYZ, perhaps I want to be an accountant, perhaps I want to do this, that, and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to say, okay, over the next 3 years of my life, let's just take 3-month blocks and just work for someone else for 3-month blocks in all these different industries until I find out what is actually I want to do. And now that may not be I want to go and build my own business in this industry. It could be I want to actually work for someone else in this industry. Because another pro, in fact, is that obviously you have economies of scale working for someone else. Is you're working for potentially a large business who has already got all the suppliers and everything in there. And you can learn off all of those things. You can learn the mistakes. You can learn how it works as a big business. You can learn how the dynamics are between different people. I think one of the biggest things in businesses is the culture, and it's even more so now than it has ever been before, because the new generations that are working in companies, they're not so fixated on the bosses can't turn around anymore, not so much anymore, and say, do what I tell you to do because I pay you to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people would just leave if someone were to say that, and they want somewhere that is a friendly working environment.
Yeah.
Perhaps they give them some free drinks and coffees and 100 cigarette breaks and all of this sort of stuff. I mean, one of my friends, in fact, just told me that his company is being bought out by quite a large company. I'm not going to mention the names here, but his company is being bought out and they're producing share options, which is another benefit, of course. Even if you don't understand, it sounds good. If you don't understand what shares are, then it sounds good, right? Something that you're getting that you weren't getting before.
Yeah.
And they've also introduced for him every 2 weeks he gets a Friday off. And things like this, they go a long, long way. And if you can get staff to be happy, and they're going to be much more productive, right? Rather than the sort of strict approach, do what I do, do what I tell you because I tell you to do it and I'm your boss.
Yeah. Yeah, and just one quick last one, because I think it's also worth mentioning. You can work for somebody while you build something for yourself. This is the well-known side hustle. I think this is one of the biggest pros, actually, when I think about it. The workplace you work at, this is not where you will end up. It's more a support that you have, like
it's a
steady
stepping
income,
stone.
and you can build your own little empire, for example. I think this is also a pro to just think of, yes, I work at a 9 to 5. Yes, I work in a restaurant. For example, me, I still work in a restaurant on a weekend, just for like 5 hours per day. But it's just something I do because I focus fully on scaling the business. I don't take any money from my business. So I just support my basic needs from the work at the restaurant.
And of course we still need to eat, right?
Yeah.
While we're doing all of this stuff, and perhaps our side hustle isn't making money for a considerable amount of time. And in the meantime, we have a 9 to 5 on the table, which can feed us. It could be a part-time job. It could be a full. I mean, this is exactly what I've done throughout the multiple jobs I've had, is building my own businesses.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the cons. what do you have in mind? What do you? Let's list like
So,
three
well,
big
you're
ones.
working towards someone else's financial independence. There's the old saying, your boss is never going to pay you enough to live next door to him. And the other one is that comes to mind is, it's like, oh, your boss has come to work in a new Lambo, and he turns around to you and he says, if you work really hard next year, or he comes to work in a new Lambo, and turns around and he says, oh, if you work really hard this year, I'll be able to buy myself another one next year.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
I think that's one of the biggest cons, is you're working in a 9 to 5, and you're looking at your boss there, who potentially even seemingly looks like he does less work. Now, I say seemingly because at one point in time, he maybe does do more work. Perhaps he does more income producing work. Perhaps he does more higher value tasks rather than just, admin tasks and the legwork. And it can build up some potential jealousy, envy, these sorts of things when you're looking at your boss and you're thinking, I work harder than him, potentially. And why is he able to buy brand new cars all the time and all of this crap, right? Now, I want to say that you never really see everything, right? You never really see what's actually going on in anyone's life. So from your perception, you may be jealous and thinking those sorts of things. Another con is that it can be monotonous, depending on the job. I've had some monotonous jobs in the past. They are almost soul destroying sometimes, and I've met people that have been working for Tesco, for example, or some supermarket for 30 years, and you turn around to them and you say, you've been working here for 30 years, so when are you becoming manager? And all of them will turn around to you and say, I never want to do that managerial position. I never want that responsibility. Which is actually, to be honest, that is actually a pro as well of working for someone else. Is that if you don't want the managerial position, you don't want the extra responsibility.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, if you want the rewards, if you want rewards that most people don't have, you're going to have to do work that most people don't do.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's as simple as that. And look, it's not for everyone. It's 100% is not for everyone. The amount of work and hours that I've put in to my businesses over the years, it's inconceivable for some people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same for you as well.
Yes.
One last con before I hand you over the mic. You can... actually, to be honest, this is probably one of the biggest cons for me, is you're relying on someone else to put food on your table. And we all know that your boss can pretty much replace you anytime. And that can be scary. In the US, I know that the employment laws aren't great. In the UK, it's different. You do have more and more rights the longer you work for someone else.
Yeah.
But still, you could be laid off. I mean, how many people got laid off during COVID? Who knows?
Even right now, as of today, we have November as of recording right now. People are laying off 20%, 30%, 50% of staff from tech companies, from investment companies, from banks. Yeah, it's not safe. It's definitely not safe. But yeah, continue. Or are you done with it?
Yeah, so go on, tell me some cons as well.
All right, so I think the biggest, let's just address the elephant in the room. It's the freedom, quote unquote. And I put this quote unquote really big and bold, because freedom is not the way you think it is as it's presented in social media. It's not that you sit in Bali and on the beach have a pina colada going on and just like, oh yeah, no, I have the freedom, work from anywhere. This is not really how things work. I talked to a content...
You can get to that point. You can get to it, yes. But look, I want to just, touch base on, look, what you see on social media is again, it's only one side of things.
Yeah.
You don't see it all. You can get to that point, but it's very, very likely that you're going to have to put a hell of a lot of work in. And most people just simply aren't willing to do that.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
Yes, and it's not even this. So I talked to one of my friends. She also lives in the UK, or used to live in the UK. She lives now in Bali, And she told me firsthand that all those influencers who are in Bali and sitting on the beach, they're sitting on the beach for exactly 15 minutes, post their story and make some content on the beach, but then are in the bungalows and just work their asses off for 20 plus hours. This is why I say this is what you see and portray on social media. This is not what you should focus on in terms of freedom. It's not. Yes, the freedom that you can relocate as you wish, this is your freedom. But don't assume that the freedom is not working, because that's not the case. There's Tim Ferriss, who has the 4-hour work week. He has a really nice way of putting things. And yes, he is living a very nice living lifestyle, but he also says it takes a lot of upfront work. And I think, but we're talking about the cons though. So this is just what I want to point out. So the cons for working for somebody else is you are not able to have the freedom to relocate as you wish. So if you want to move to the United States, as I did, I have to look for another job. I have to look for another employer. I have to put everything together, write my resume or my CV. There's a language barrier eventually, so you need to learn the language. So those things are, yeah, it's a pain. So it's a really con to just work for somebody. You cannot just relocate. Another thing I say is the salary or the wages you make is the compromise essentially of giving up your dreams if you want to step into the career ladder. What I mean by that is one of my friends, he also worked for a company that got acquired by Samsung, and he gets a really nice paycheck. He's in the mid 6 figures now. He's in the same age as I am. He lives a way more comfortable life as I do. I'm not gonna lie. He lives in Germany, so he has those working benefits as an employee, as you mentioned earlier. So he has a very comfortable life, and this is the con. If you get a really nice salary, you're more likely to give up your dreams if you have your dream to be an entrepreneur, or if you dream to have your own investment firm or your own business. If you have that and you have that sort of income with the disposable money, you will get too comfortable and don't pursue your dreams, because you get 6 figures, you work 30 hours a week. This is what he does. He works 30 hours. He gets 39 days off a year paid. Because he lives in Germany, he also has the benefit of PTO, which is paid time off. But here in the United States, it's called also sick days. So he has 6 weeks of paid time off in terms of sick days. Then he has paid vacation or holiday. Why should he start doing something like, why should he step down and start working 60 hours, 70 hours a week to start his own thing?
To build something from scratch. I think another con as well there is like, yeah, you can have a very nice cushy job.
Yeah.
But like I said, they could drop you at any time. So what the hell are you going to do with all of your cars and all of your monthly payments that are probably on lease, and so many thousands of pounds of dollars going out every single month?
Yes.
On a house, on like all these luxury items, right? If you lose your job, you're screwed.
Yes. And
it's going to be a big wake-up call.
I agree. And so the last con, I think you already mentioned it, but I just want to re-emphasize on this. You are reliant on one source of income.
Yeah.
You have no control how much you will get paid. And I give you an example of my recent job as a salesperson. I made 6 figures with the company I worked for as a sales. I got commission, but then COVID hit. COVID destroyed pretty much the business I worked at, because my pay was 75% commission based, which means because COVID, businesses shut down and it was pretty much no sales at all, I only made 25% of my regular income. which had a huge impact of how I live and gave me huge amounts of anxiety to tackle that kind of financial burden. And if I have my own business, I could decide whether I still sell or not. I can decide to market or not. I can decide to expand my spectrum of products or services. It's always on me. But as an employee, I had no rights to go out and say, hey, I want to expand in a different niche because they are still open. But to the people I used to sell, they were closed. So I had no freedom. I had to sit there and just accept the fact that I was not making any sales for however long. And I think this is like a big con that you should be aware of. You have no rights and opportunities to expand your field of service. Yeah. And let's just hop into pros and cons, I would say, because we are getting to our 30-minute mark here. So let's keep it shorter than last time.
Before we do move on, I want to put one more in the mix.
Okay.
Briefly, that it's a con of working for someone else, but a pro of working for yourself, and that is that money management skills. So if you're working for yourself, you are forced to learn money management skills. However, you're less likely to learn that if you're working for someone else. Now, I'd encourage everyone to learn money management skills, because at the end of the day, a pro of working 9 to 5 for someone else, is that you can, if you know how to manage money, you can very easily retire early, and you can very easily build yourself a nice, good pension and become financially independent. That is to say, you're not reliant on someone else anymore for your food on the table. But then you are less likely to learn it. You see what I'm saying? So like, if you are doing your own sort of thing, then you're more likely to say, okay, I had $1,000 come in, let's build some cash reserves. So like with COVID hitting, right? If you had your own business, you could have cash reserves. You could have looked at the situation and be like, okay, XYZ is changing, income and expenses are changing in projected ways, which we'll review weekly or monthly or however often you see fit. And you basically manage it. And you manage that risk by making more money, cash reserves, selling assets, things like this.
Yeah.
So, pros and cons of working for yourself. So obviously the biggest pro is quote unquote freedom again, right? Is that you're not reliant on someone else for putting food on the table, that you can do what you want, you can work when you want. But then it's obviously reflective of how much work you get, of how much money you bring in. Like some days, for example, you can book days off, but a lot of people that work for themselves don't. They actually replace a full-time job with almost 2 full-time jobs, working from 40 hours a week, say, to 60 to 80 hours a week. And we've all heard stories about Elon Musk and people like that sleeping at the office. And look, you don't have to build a billion-dollar company, an international billion-dollar company over the next 30 years. You could very easily, anyone can build their own business and eventually hire staff on a 5 to 10 year timeline, to the point at which it's running without the need for you in there.
Yes.
And that is the ultimate goal for most people, if you are starting your own business, is essentially to control your income and then eventually get staff in and remove yourself from the legwork.
Correct. For me, the pros and cons for working for yourself is you can steer the direction as you wish. It is a pro and it is a con, because if you need to steer, that basically means you don't make the money you wish, or you are struggling with something. So this is obviously a con, but you have the freedom to change the direction where you're going. And I think this is a pro, because in my opinion, what I do now is, yes, I do have my agency, but my agency is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. It just brings me to a point where I can do what I really want to do. And that takes a lot of work. That takes multiple businesses that capture the audience I want, or I want to be in an industry known for it. So that gives me opportunities, that gets me into where I want to get into, which is motorsport. And yeah, so you have the pro that you can steer into the direction, and if you don't like the task you're doing, you can just simply switch the direction. And I think this is a huge pro. In terms of a con, it is always your obligation and responsibility to make the money. There's nobody else selling for you. In terms of
all falls on your head.
Yes, and that means you have to hire salespeople if you suck at sales. You have to hire the marketing if you don't like marketing. You have to hire managers to hire and fire people if you don't like this. You have to do the taxes, or you hire a CPA if you don't like it. So everything is on you, and you are responsible for every single bit of the operation you're running. So it comes with a price, but the rewards are even greater, I would say, and it's worth the fight. But if you don't want it, like my friend, he is working for Samsung now. He lives a very nice life. He works as a software engineer, and all he does is just sitting his 30 hours a week, and he has a really comfortable salary. So if you want to not work for yourself, that's absolutely fine. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. It's just you need to understand the consequences that come along. And if you're aware of this and you can make your own decision on this and your own opinion, which this podcast is trying to give you here, 2 different perspectives, and you form your own opinion on this.
Exactly. I think, we can start to wrap up and summarize this. Essentially, look, at the end of the day, you just need to sort of take it. You just need to take it on a longer term view and say whether you want to work for someone else or you want to work for yourself or you want to try both, do a little bit of them both at the same time. Look, it's all doable, but it's only at the point in time when you decide, this is what I'm going to do and here's the plan in place. I would actually encourage people, if you are just starting out, perhaps in your late teens or early 20s, is yes, go and get a job. Learn what it is like to have that work ethic where you're forced to then work 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And then do that in as many industries as possible. Because like I say, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If I didn't know that, certain industries are out there, then how do I know if that's going to be my passion or not? And look, passion is something that's thrown about all the time, and the reality is that you may not find it, but we can try our best.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is dabble as much as possible, dip your toe in as many different industries as possible, and hopefully something will stick. I mean, you throw enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick, and hopefully something does stick for you, and it may stick for you for the next 5 years, and then you decide, actually, I found something better, and great.
Yeah.
It's about keeping your eyes open, keeping your options open, understanding that there are pros and cons of anything in life, right?
Yeah.
There's pros and cons of everything, and we can't restrict ourselves to a point at which where we are constantly we're over analyzing, and then we essentially get paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
So just start something, right?
Yeah.
It's easier now than ever before to start your own business. Yes, but there are also a lot more options, which means that you can have that paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So just start.
Yeah.
I've personally built businesses while working for someone else. I've worked for someone else. I still work for someone else. And but however, again, it's not the end goal. And perhaps I may go and work for some. You could say, you have your own business. Imagine you had your own business. You've been building that up over the last few years. Would you be then opposed if a larger business, perhaps an international business, approaches you and says, we would like to now buy out your business, but we want you to still work in the business?
Yeah.
Now that's another option, right? That you're kind of in your own business, but then you're being bought out by a large business. Perhaps it's 50-50 shareholding or something, maybe more or less, I don't know.
Yeah.
And these are things that can happen. And these are things I know personally, people where they have had their own businesses and they have been bought out by larger companies.
Yeah.
So, keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
What is here and good for you today may not be here and good for you tomorrow, and something better may come around the corner. So just keep the options open,
Yeah.
and whatever you want to do, it's neither good or nor bad. It's just is, and it really depends on you as an individual. What do I want? It comes back to that age-old question. What do I want?
I agree. And my 2 cents for this, and then we can let you guys go. But essentially, what I want you to do is, if you look for a job, if you work for somebody and you want to start something on your own and you don't know where to start, and you kind of have this desire of starting something for yourself, that's good. Keep this, write this down, keep this really memorized, because you will start to forget once the salary becomes too comfortable for you. And that's why my 2 cents for you is work for somebody in intention to learn something. If it's a skill, if it's a industry, if it's connection and networking, who knows? But be intentional of what job you're trying to get. If you have a dream to be yourself, like an entrepreneur, so be intentional. Do something intentionally. Sometimes you don't make the money you really want to, but basically all you need is the basic needs and the skills. Once you have the skills, you can pursue a new kind of, job to learn new skills. But be intentional. That's my 2 cents, and I think we wrap this up here now. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, listening along, watching along. If you haven't seen our videos on YouTube, link down below. And if you are not listening to our podcast but watch our videos, check out our podcast, also link down in the description, and we go from there.